Hi, my name is Mary Wong, and I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist in downtown Toronto. Welcome to my live post number 28, where tonight I am going to be talking about raw or cooked vegetables. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because, it's one thing to say, oh, eat raw or eat cooked, but you really want to get the lowdown so that you can choose wisely for yourself. I know for sure in the last decade or two, there's a huge raw food movement. And now under Chinese medicine standards, that has never been a possibility. And partly because, Chinese medicine has been around for thousands of years and 3,000 plus really, in fact. So when you look at the history, really, in Chinese medicine, we're living in a time of poor sanitation back in China. That is for sure. So really, raw food is not a good place to start when you're talking about your health. And so, in modern day, so living in North America, there is a better possibility. However, it doesn't preclude us 100% from E. coli or salmonella that can be found in traces of vegetables. There have been, in the past couple of years, some cases where it had caused deaths. However, this is few and far between. So really the risk of getting salmonella or E. coli through raw vegetables is actually quite low. It's like buying a winning lottery ticket. Of course, this time you're not winning, you're losing. Anyway, however, I still want to talk from a TCM point of view with regards to cooked versus raw. Now, if you are a healthy person and your digestive system is strong, well, then I say you can probably handle some raw vegetables, right? However, if you're elderly, if you're a young child, if you are a person that has a weak digestive system, then you might think twice about eating raw vegetables every single day, especially those that are doing like 100% raw. For all their food intake. And coming again from a Chinese perspective, it's really about living in a balanced way, right? So even if you have more of a compromised immune system, one way to get around it is in fact doing things like blending. So now you have our powerful blend tech or Vitamix that are out there right now. So the possibility is endless. And what that does is it helps us to masticate. It helps us to do that preliminary digestion. So instead of having to masticate, which is chewing, and our saliva also have digestive enzymes, the blending helps us to break down some of the cellular walls that are found in plant cells, because plant cellular walls are quite fibrous. Hence, vegetables are considered fiber because it is difficult to break down. And again, if you have a compromised digestive system, and certainly children, they do not have the ability to digest like we do. Their digestive system is immature. And then again, elderly, same thing. There's a decline of digestive power. So really what we want to be is to be able to maximize our ability to absorb the nutrients that are available for us. So if you have a compromised system, and you know that by, checking it out with yourself, which means, are you a person that after you eat, you tend to get bloated? Or as a woman, do you tend towards getting bloating certain times of your cycle? So that, to me, says that you have a disposition. So coming from that perspective, I would say you're probably not going to benefit as much if you're eating 100% raw vegetables. And certainly then also looking at the kinds of vegetables you're eating. So for example, like a leafy spinach it's a little easier to digest than something like a broccoli or a cauliflower, right? Because they have a much harder cellular wall, difficult to break down. So again, using something like a blender, that can help and be the first step in the digestive process. Now, again, also from TCM perspective, Chinese medicine perspective, having raw is typically considered consuming cold foods, and cold does not help our digestive juices, because technically what we want is to have our foods be our body temperature or warmer, and otherwise you're requiring more energy, and we are born and we have a certain amount of limited energy within our bodies, and as such, if you have a lower deficiency amount of energy that doesn't have the ability to digest as others, then having it partly cooked, or so for like example, broccolis or cauliflowers, you just want to steam them a little bit so there's still a little crunch left, but at least you help to pre-digest it a bit. Now going to the theory of nutrition. So if you take a food that is completely raw, so you take the spinach and you have a raw spinach and you eat that just as is in a salad, right? Versus a cooked spinach, and again, not killed to death, but it really only requires a couple of minutes. In a couple of episodes, I will teach you how to cook like super fast, doing spinach, and super tasty. And I know as a working person, you want things to be fast. So we'll look at that and how we keep nutrition in. Point is, if we take a raw batch of spinach versus a partly cooked spinach, which could even be wilted for like 15 seconds, by the way, we're likely going to be able to absorb the nutrients from the partly cooked one more so than the raw. And again, this is because of the cellular walls, the thick cellular walls that makes it fibrous. And so for some, it in fact can impede the digestion, even though it can help for relieving constipation. For some, it actually does the opposite, because it just sits there if you can't digest it, right? So now back to cooking. I mentioned earlier about E. coli and Salmonella. So, spinach, there are studies out there that if you contaminate soil with like E. coli or, we'll take E. coli, the propensity for the spinach root tissue to absorb E. coli is actually very huge. So, and again in this case then, you're not going to worry so much about any kind of contamination affecting your digestive tract if you cook it. And cooking raw spinach requires that you cook it at 160 degrees Fahrenheit, which equates to 72 degrees Celsius, meaning that's still under boiling point. However, I say cook it to boiling point for about 15 seconds. You only need like this much water. Literally, I could stick all of this in this much pot of water, and you swish it around a bit, and it gets cooked, and you eat it. You add a bit of garlic, which increases the warmth for the absorptive power of your body, the digestive power, and it tastes good. And it kills the E. coli and other bacteria. A lot of bacteria get killed through the heating process. So that's good, again, for those that have weak digestive issues. However, the reality, though, is that some bacteria are resistant even to heat. So it's not going to kill all bacteria, but it certainly will kill most of them, and some of the most deadly ones. So to me, cooking is typically better, but again, the chances of having the lethal types of bacteria are going to be low. So you can have some salads here and there, but we do also say in the winter weather that we're getting outside right now, you may want to have more cooked vegetables. And I don't know if I know for myself, when I eat warm foods, I feel like I'm getting more fuel in my body in the cold weather, and it keeps me warmer, especially for those women that tend to have poor circulation, right? And versus if you just eat a cold raw foods in the heart of winter, again, it doesn't stoke up that digestive fire and stoke up our whole body's fire, which is what we want in the winter time. So again, one thing to get around it then, if you really are in love with salads, then you can do it partly cooked. So maybe wilting it by, washing the spinach or whatever kind of bed of lettuce you may choose, and then cook some of the harder to digest vegetables, like I mentioned, the broccolis and the cauliflowers, the eggplants, all those kinds of things that I think that would be better slightly cooked, and even carrots. So you know how people will eat carrots like as a veggie dip? You can actually cook that even for like a minute, and that'll help partly pre-digest and help you digest. And so point back to my cooked salad, you can and if you eat meat, then you may add a cooked piece of chicken or something like that, or tofu even, so that's warm, and you put that on top of your lettuce bed and mix it up, and then it'll slightly wilt, and it'll be tasty, and you add whatever dressing you may need to. I have put out here, so this is fresh spinach, right? So it still has its roots. And of course, the best source is local. I wasn't able to find local today, so this is through our local large grocery store in Canada, or in Ontario, and so it is getting shipped, and so is this one. And this one are those triple washed, trimmed, right? So what do? Do you just throw it on in your salad bowl and toss it up? Or would you do something else to it? Well, I'm going to tell you this. And when I resort to something like this, which is less ideal, and one of my colleagues, Tanya Smith, thank you so much for pointing this out, made me be aware of that. I actually take longer time to sort them out. I literally inspect all the leaves. So anything that has like a yucky browning type of edging, I take out and I throw out. And then this is a pretty nice new one, but sometimes you go to the store and it has only got a couple of days and you buy it on sale or something and you want to save $1. Well, I don't know if you're saving $1, because if you do what I do, you're going to have to get rid of a lot of it. And if you already see here, because don't forget this is packed and shipped, you see condensation on here, right? So think about condensation, what it does to bacteria. It actually increases bacteria count. Bacteria loves and thrives in moisture. So the longer the lettuce has been sitting around in something like this kind of container, the more moisture is going to build up, and the more ability for this bacteria, the spores, to spread. Now, the other truth about bacteria such as like E. coli, what happens is they're very resilient. They may not just sit on the surface, so washing it may not help that well, and even washing it in vinegar doesn't kill it off, okay? Or chlorine. So what people, again, the best is cooking it a little bit. But what we don't know is that oftentimes even the E. coli, they can embed into it. So it's not even just on the surface. They can literally go in bed in it, so that even when you wash it with whatever source possible, it can still stay. And again, buyer beware, eater beware, because the chances are lower. So we do like nutrients, so this can be nutritious. But again, for those that have compromised digestive tract, it's going to be a little less absorptive. So for example, if I say this has a digestive, sorry, not digestive, but a nutritional value of like 100, let's just pretend, right? We'll just give it a value. And then you have a cooked spinach, and perhaps you have 75% of the nutritional value left. However, when you physically take it into your mouth and eat it, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to be absorbing more of the one that is partly cooked. So you're getting 100% of the 75 versus maybe barely 50% of the value of 100. So in the end, you actually get much more bang for your buck for the partly cooked vegetable. Does that make sense? So is there anything I want to add in to you? Oh, right. After cooking, though, there is such a thing. When you just let it sit at room temperature for periods of time, what it can potentially do is actually increase bacterial growth, which is kind of crazy because of the drastic change in temperature. That can actually do that. It's kind of crazy. So there you have it. And with modern technology, there has been some that helps kill it, but again, not 100% because it goes inside. So what do? Raw versus cooked. From a very professional perspective, I say choose more cooked, but partly cooked, lightly cooked, not killed. And what else I do with that is, and when I cook with that tiny, tiny bit of water, it's partly steamed really, and then I actually drink the cooking water like a broth, and you'll see it gets stained green or whatever the color of the vegetable may be, and it tastes pretty good. And of course we need to hydrate with water, so that's always a good thing to do. So I think the final couple of points would be, if cooked versus raw, partly cooked, not cooked to death, and there's a leeway for some raw, but just not all the time. And in terms of bacteria, also better with cooking because they'll kill after 15 seconds, at least for spinach anyway, at least 75 degrees Celsius. So that is very good. And the other piece is, especially if you have compromised digestive system, in Chinese medicine we say you can have a spleen qi deficiency, and when you have that, then sure enough, again, children, especially under 2, and then elderly, and then just those of us that have weaker digestion, better to have warming foods. And now, with warming, hot, cooked foods, the other thing to add in may be certain kinds of spices. So if you are running cold and you have difficulty digesting and you're running damp, then you can add in, food grade medicine. So adding like garlic and onions and green onions and ginger, those are all fantastic things to help you pre-digest as well, to allow your body to receive and transform the food, to mulch it out, and then to transport it to all the cells in your body. And for those women trying to conceive, that includes all the way down to your egg cells, which are the largest cells in your body. So thank you so much. Oh, what about drinking while eating? Awesome question, David Bray, one of the most brilliant practitioners I know in Toronto, aside from myself, of course. Anyway, drinking, of course, can dilute the digestive juices in your body, so you don't want to do that. And so typically you would want to drink before, and if you're drinking, also think about drinking warm fluids. So if you think about drinking ice cold fluids and you're trying to warm up this food so your body can receive it, you're being counterproductive. Have you ever taken melted butter or even oil and you put it into cold water? Well, it's going to solidify, and so that's not good for digestion. And you don't want that. You don't want food to just sit in your gut. You want to pass through as quick as possible. So that is that awesome question, and thank you for bringing that up, because of course I know you know this, so you want others to know this. And so if you drink before, and if you drink tea. And so, for example, dim sum, if you know what that is, if it's just Chinese food, it can be quite oily, right? And so what Chinese people do is we drink green tea or Chinese jasmine tea or bole, different kinds of teas, because teas can also help to break down the oils and can help digestion too. So that part is okay, but certainly not cold water. Anything you want to add, Dr. David Bray, that would be great. And if not, I think we have run out of time. And I will, in the near future, do a little cooking for the veg, so that it'll be easy peasy. And so join me next week. And I haven't quite gotten the topic yet, but I'm sure it'll be a fun topic. So thank you for joining me, and join in next Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same bat channel. And this is my live post, so please like it. And you can pick up my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, which you see is backwards, unfortunately. But come on and join me. Look at my posts. Check out my website, marywong.life. See you next Wednesday evening, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care. Bye for now.